guys ready? You ready, Chris?
Sure.
The meeting will now come to order. We will have invocation by Pastor Doug Mund, and after that, please stay standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you all for the opportunity to pray here tonight. Let us bow our heads. Heavenly Father, as we meet here tonight as a city, as a community, we pray your special blessing upon us as only you can bring. Lord, with changes before us, we wish our Mayor, Greg Powell, well-being as he moves into a new stage of his life. And Father, as we look for a new commissioner and even elections this fall, we pray your special guidance and wisdom for our city, for the right commissioner to do the right job. Bless our commissioners here tonight, Father. Give them wisdom tonight and throughout the future. Guide our city employees and all those who serve here in the city. We pray a special blessing on them also. Lord, give us the grace to carry out the jobs before us, not just for ourselves, Lord, but, Lord, for a bigger purpose, a bigger hope, serving you, Lord, to do what's right, often before what is convenient, to consider others before ourselves, and put the needs of our community above our own interests. Lord, let us do this all for your glory. We pray this, Father God, empowered by your Holy Spirit, and in the name and character of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do I have to?
The number you have dialed is not in service. Please check the number and try your call again. Thank you.
Just so everybody knows what's going on.
Yeah.
We have 5 commissioners. Mayor Powell resigned, therefore that's leaving us 4 commissioners. As the obvious point is, 3 commissioners are here, 1 commissioner is absent. Commissioner that's absent due to business conflicts is Jim Taylor Jr. However, we have certain items on the consent agenda that we can pass by our bylaws by placing a telephone call or conference call to Jim Jr. And we can take care of those items. That way the city can maintain their, basically continue to function without having a full meeting. So therefore, we're going to do the consent agenda items and then basically run through the consent agenda items. And it looks like we're going to, that'll be the only business per se that is conducted tonight. Everything else is put on hold until the commission meeting on the 16th of August 2016. That way everybody knows what's going on and everybody's on the same page.
You guys ready? It's going lovely.
The number you have dialed is not in service.
Pressed it.
Please check the number and try your call again. Thank you.
Hmm? Press 9 too. I don't know.
Hold on just a second. We'll,
No, 162.
This is Jim.
yeah, Jim Jr., this is Chris Williams with actually the Commonwealth City Commission.
Yes, sir.
Just be advised that you're on speakerphone and that you are being broadcast throughout the community, so just that you know that you're, just take necessary precautions.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm going to turn you over to the president of the commission, which has been selected to be Commissioner Castler.
Okay,
Okay.
we're now doing the consent agenda items. First, in a $5,044,168.32. A resolution for R-16.92 and R-1693. All I need to do, or do I need to do number 5?
Jim, those two are the first one's a resolution to execute an agreement with the Montgomery County, basically granting them the right-of-way along County Road 4550, which that's North Klein, and a resolution to submit an application for justice assistance grant for the police department. And the next item is we're going to set the public hearing for the budget for fiscal year 2017 for Tuesday, August 16, 2016 at 6:30 p.m. Those are all the items on the consent agenda, including the appropriation ordinance that was mentioned by Commissioner Castler.
We also need to do the minutes.
Okay.
And also the last meeting's minutes, for Tuesday, July 12, 2016.
Okay.
Any have any questions on the agenda?
I have no questions. Do you have any questions, Jim?
No.
Okay.
Move to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Williams and seconded by Commissioner Martin to approve the consent agenda as presented. Commissioner Taylor,
Yes.
Commissioner Martin,
Aye.
Commissioner Castler,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye. Does that conclude all the business?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Hey, Jim,
Yes.
that concludes it all. We're going to shut you down now.
Thank you.
Oh,
We
wait,
have to
wait, wait.
adjourn. That's all the business,
Wait,
but we
hold
would
on.
have to adjourn.
We need to adjourn. Do you agree that we need to adjourn?
I do.
So do I.
Okay.
Motion was made by Commissioner Taylor and seconded by Commissioner Williams to adjourn.
Is that what that was?
Commissioner Castler,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams, Commissioner Martin,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor.
Aye.
Be safe, Jim.
Thank you, Chris.
All right,
Bye-bye.
bye. Sure go, buddy.
Okay. Now we move on to public hearing, special presentation, and proclamations. Our first presentation is a 2015 audit, and Neil Phillips with Jared Gilmore and Phillips CPA firm will make presentation.
Good evening. Neil Phillips from Jared Gilmore Phillips prepared your independent audit for this year. Does everybody have their copy?
Yes, sir.
Blue book? All right. Let's skip past the letters that are in there and dive straight into page 1, 2, and 3. Page 1, 2, and 3 is the only thing that's in it here that's considered ours. Everything else in here is your numbers. The first paragraph on page 1 talks about what we audited, being the city of Coffeyville as of December 31st, 2015. The second paragraph actually reiterates what I just said, management's responsibilities for the financial statements. These are your numbers, your representations with what happened. The next 3 paragraphs talks about the auditor's responsibilities and the fact that we audit following auditing standards that are generally accepted in the United States of America. And then we also follow what they call the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide. Very bottom of the page, we talk about the fact that you do have an adverse opinion. In the state of Kansas, we're allowed to do what they call the Kansas Cash Basis and Budget Laws, which is what they call the regulatory basis of accounting, in which you can't spend the money unless you have public approval, which most of the time that's through the budget process, or with capital projects, they bring each item to you specifically, you approve each project, or you have to have the cash in the bank. There's a few exceptions. If you have a bond agreement, you have a grant, you are allowed to go negative, but you have to have the money in the bank before you can actually spend the money. So actually, that makes it the regulatory basis of accounting in the state of Kansas makes it a very safe basis of accounting. That's why when you go out on the bond market, a lot of times a Kansas bond will sell way before any other state's bonds, because it is a safe basis of accounting, because you have to have the money and you have to have public approval. So actually, the third paragraph down on page 2 is probably the most important one in your entire document. Unmodified opinion on the regulatory basis of accounting. In our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the aggregate cash and unencumbered cash balances of the city of Coffeyville, Kansas, as of December 31st, 2015, the aggregate receipts and expenditures for the year then ended in accordance with the financial reporting provisions of the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide as described in Note 1. A lot of people say, okay, what does that mean to me? Well, when you're looking at financial statements here, our opinion is saying that we feel like the numbers that are in the audit are fairly stated of what happened during the year and how you ended the year. We feel like they are materially correct. The next couple paragraphs talks about the supplemental information and the fact that we did audit schedules 1, 2, and 3. Then you're going to note on the last paragraph on page 3, that's different this year. You had some new bonds this last year, and they had some requirements included in those bonds, and which we can't audit. And that would be two things. Insurance. I don't audit insurance. But the bondholders want to know that you have insurance on the electric plant. So there's a schedule in there that shows how much insurance coverage you had and who you were paying, what the premium was, but that's not something that I audit. I don't audit to make sure that you have enough coverage. The other thing is that you are required to disclose the number of users to your bondholders. They want to make sure that you're not on a decreasing cline, make sure that you're staying up there with your numbers. I don't go out and count each house that you have a meter at, so I don't audit the number of meters you have. I trust what staff has based on billings that they're doing, and that number shows up in the audit. So the last paragraph says that we did include schedule number 4 for your bondholders, but we didn't do any audit work on it other than looking and tying it out to what management gave to us. Does that make sense? All right, page 4 and 5, this is where we'll spend almost all of our time. We'll fly through the rest of the audit after we get through this page. Statement 1 is to show users at a glance that you are in compliance with the cash basis laws. Fourth column over, as you glance down through there, if you've seen any of those being negative, it'd be a violation of Kansas statutes in the cash basis rules. As you glance down through there, you can see none of them are negative. Any unencumbered cash a lot of times is referred to as your reserves as a city, your cash carryover. In your case, you can see that you actually started that year out with $32 million, actually ended the year with $43 million. So it looks like, oh man, we had a great year. Well, the fact is, remember, you issued those bonds in 2015, and you had that money in the bank, and then you were spending it down in 2016 to get your plant up and running. So actually, if we look at it, let's look at it by fund just for a few minutes here. KMAG actually, that's the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide, we call it the KMAG, actually breaks it down into sections, which kind of tries to help you as a user understand the number or where the monies are. Like the very top line is the general fund. You can see that where we started the year out with $1.1 million. We brought in $12 million of cash receipts. We turned around and spent $12 million, and in the year with $1,058,000 in our general fund. The next section is actually called the special purpose funds. And they specifically name that the special purpose funds so that everybody would understand that we can't spend those monies for anything except for that purpose. I always give the best example that you have out there is your liquor tax. That's the very second line down. Every time somebody, I guess it'd be at the local liquor store, buys some alcohol, liquor tax goes to the state, turns around and comes back to you. You can't spend it for anything except for parks, recreation, police improvements. There's limitations on how you can spend it. There's also monies like your special highway money. It comes down to you every time somebody puts gas in their tank at the local gas station, goes to the state, comes back. You can't spend it for anything except for streets and alleys. Can't spend it for a broke water line. Something happens at the sewer, something happens at the electric. It's restricted for a special purpose. So as you're glancing down through those special purpose funds, those are all monies that have been set aside for a specific purpose. And most of the time, those special purpose funds are set aside by statute. So even when you think about the capital reserve funds and some of those other type of reserves that you've set aside, you decide how much money to put in there, but they are regulated by statute about how you can spend them. Special purpose funds are all basically restricted when it comes down to it. Middle 3/4 of the page down, you got bond and interest funds. You do have monies that you set aside for your bonds. You've got some capital projects funds. That's where you're going to see that electric bonds project. There's $3 million of that ending money, ending unencumbered cash or reserves or cash carryover. Then the last section there, they call it the business funds because they want you to understand that we treat those utility funds as a business in the state of Kansas, which means that once you make or pay for all the bills of that utility fund, you can do anything you want with the profit. It is a business. You should treat it like a business. However, I always caution, it's important that you realize business funds, this is on a cash basis. And you know we have aging infrastructure. You've done a lot of improvements into various areas of infrastructure, probably actually better than some of the other cities we do audit, but it's important that you have reserves to carry over to be able to leverage to make those improvements. So even though we call them business funds, don't get too excited when we see that the water fund has $2.3 million in it this year and when it had $1.8 million in it the prior year. Because we do have a lot of aging infrastructure, which is quite costly to replace as we go on. Comes down to total unencumbered cash was $43 million. Those last two columns there take it back to reconcile to where you ended the year with actual cash. So as you look down through there, you're going to see that we actually had $91 million of cash in the bank. However, you had $48 million in encumbrances and accounts payable. Encumbrances include that contract with like the electric. That was $43 million of that $48 million was your contract to do the electric plant out there. So always something to remember. Questions about statement one? All right, we'll go a lot faster and we'll go quick here. Footnote number 1 is significant accounting policies. If you pick up any, well, I wouldn't say any, 90% of the Kansas cities follow the KMAG. And so footnote number 1 is pretty much going to be the same because it explains what Kansas cash basis is and how we're accounting for our monies. Footnote number 2 that starts on the bottom of page 9 actually gets into information that's specific to the city of Coffeyville. The first one is compliance with Kansas statutes. As you look through there, you're going to see that there are no violations that we noted. When we do your audit, the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide annually gives us a list of questions to test. We couldn't test you on every law and regulation in the state of Kansas. We'd be here all year round. Staff would hate us. They would really not like us, I'm sure. But they give us a list. This year's list was 12 pages long of items that they ask us to look at with Kansas statutes. And so it should be a positive that you see there on the bottom of page 9 because we did not have any violations that we noted in the statutes that we did test this year. Page 10 continues on with compliance, and it talks about your bond reserves. There is a requirement that you always set aside a portion of your next principal and interest and have it in a separate fund 1 month prior to making your payments. They always want you to make sure that you're saving up your payment. As you glance down through there, you're going to see that we did have enough money in reserves to make all of those type of payments. The next page talks about you did have a rate covenant. And in 2015, you were at 217% of that rate covenant, in which you're required to be at 125%, which means that we're properly charging the utility rates within the bond agreement. And always something to remember is that is a bond-defined revenue. That's not just pure, how much profit did we make? A bond defines revenue as the revenue after, or prior to making any bond payments, prior to doing any capital outlay, and prior to any administration cost. And so sometimes that number looks a little skewed because of those type of requirements with your bondholders, but they like to see that number up there so that they know that that you're charging your customers correctly and will be able to pay back your bond payments. Footnote number 3 talks about deposits and investments, just where you've invested your money, how you've invested your money. Footnote number 4 on page 13 is long-term debt. Lists out the mortgages, the loans that you have as a city. You can see there we started the year out with $17,825,000, and we issued $71,251,000 of debt, but turned around and paid down $11,992,000 to end the year with $77 million of debt. The next page, actually it's the next 2 pages, show you the payout, how that's going to be paid off. And it's always in 5-year increments. All governments are supposed to be doing all their planning in 5-year phases. You can see the next 5 years payments, and then it's in 5-year chunks after that. So you can see when all those type of items, when all that pays off. I am going to point out page 17. That's a new footnote this year, the CAPERS Defined Benefit Pension Plan. I'm skipping past a few there, but I want to talk about that one real quick, because as you're reading that, that is a new footnote this year. It talks about your portion. Actually, there was an accounting change at the upper level. It wasn't my decision. It was the AICPA at the federal, or not federal, but national level, and says that the CAPERS shortfall, which we all know CAPERS doesn't have enough money in their plan, the shortfall has been assigned to all the entities that are within the CAPERS system. And it's the 4th paragraph up there on page 17. The city's portion, we're required to disclose that now, is $4,399,000 for CAPERS and $3,948,000 for the KP&F system. I just wanted to point that out because I truly do not believe the state of Kansas is coming to collect that $4 million and that $3 million, because we are in the state of Kansas on a pay-as-you-go system, just like the Social Security Administration is. We're paying in today to pay the retirees today. Tomorrow we'll be paying in tomorrow's employees to pay tomorrow's retirees, but we are required to disclose that number to you so that you know how much of the state shortfall actually applies to the city of Coffeyville. Not that I truly don't believe they're going to come ask you for that money tomorrow. It'd really surprise me if the state of Kansas closed down the CAPERS system tomorrow. And that would be the only reason that they would come and ask you for that money, is if they decided to stop the CAPERS system and close it exactly where it was, nobody else could get in, and only the retirees that were in there would come out. That's what you would have to pay. All right.
You said it wouldn't surprise you, or it would surprise you?
It would surprise me. I don't believe that they would come.
It wouldn't surprise me.
The CAPERS system's been there for a while. It's just like the Social Security Administration. They're doing a fund as you go. The state of Kansas borrowed enough money out of it, lost enough money in the stock markets that as you put in today, that's what's helping pay for today's retirees, just like the Social Security Administration is doing at the federal level. All right, I'm going to make you turn all the way back to page 21, and then we only got one more page after that. Page 21 is the summary of expenditures, actual and budgeted funds only. And this is to show users at a glance that you are in compliance with the Kansas cash basis laws. Very last column there, variance over and under. As you glance down through there, you can see that they're all negative, which means we're under budget. I really don't like the fact that negative means you're okay. But in this case, you are under budget in all of those funds, which means, like the general fund, you had $13,167,000 of public approval to spend money, and you only spent $12,145,000, so you are actually under your publicly approved budget by $1,022,000. So if anything, that's a positive, meaning we had our public hearing, which you just set within your consent agenda, public approved it, you ended up coming in 2015, $1,022,000 under that publicly approved budget. So something to keep in mind. All right, pages, the rest of the pages are the details, the numbers to everything that you are used to seeing. This is in the state format. If you pulled out your, I know Stephanie gives you a lot more detail when you're looking at your budget, but if you actually looked at the state form, this is going to be the format that it follows. Very top line is your ad valorem tax. And we always throw a prior year number in there to help you do some comparison. I'm looking at page 22. Prior year, we collected ad valorem tax, which would be our property taxes from our system, our citizens, of $1,541,000. Apologize, I was getting dry there. In 2015, we collected $1,523,000 from our citizens in property taxes. The budget is actually the amount that you levied, $1,730,000. So you actually had levied taxes of $1,730,000. So what that means is that very last column that says variance over and under, $206,000, that's your taxpayers that did not pay their taxes in 2015. The hope is the very next line down is delinquent tax, that 206 will come in the next year. So that $81,000 that you collected in 2015 on the delinquent taxpayer line is the ones that were delinquent in prior years. So it lays it out by line item. Should be what you're used to seeing on a monthly basis. I'm not going to go through and point out any different fund unless you actually really had questions about any of them. Let's turn back to the letter that's in there. The letter that is in there, I call it the presentation letter. It's in your packets only. Doesn't go out to the public. It goes to you and management. This is in the past, if we had any disagreements with management, we had any problems encountered, we would have came and orally talked to you. Said, we got to make these two cooperate because they're not cooperating. Well, with legal counsel and everything else, we're now required to put it in writing to tell you that we had no disagreements with management. We didn't have to consult any outside accountants or outside auditors because you were doing something crazy. It's a boilerplate letter, but it does have good information in there that I really think you should read on page 1 and 2. The next page in there, the next few pages, is what we call the management representation letter. That used to be signed between management and the auditors. We're now required to give everybody a copy of that so that you can see what representations have been made. I call it the reminder letter because as management reads through it, if any of it applies, they would have needed to make sure they talked to me about it. Crazy lawsuit, something conflict of interest. As you read through it, you're going to see there's quite a few representations that are made there, but as the management reads through it, if they've seen anything in that letter that they needed to talk to me about, it's the reminder letter to, hey, wait, talk to the auditor about that information. You're also going to note in there that usually there's some adjustments that are listed in that letter too. I'm excited to say that the numbers that you had previously were the numbers that Stephanie's been providing to you, meaning we had no adjustments, which is a really good thing in my opinion. That means that the numbers that Stephanie is providing to you on a monthly basis are materially accurate and good numbers for you to make good decisions on. I think that's one of the biggest positives you can take out of this audit is that you have good enough financial statements that the auditor didn't even have to make one adjustment. there questions of me? I know I went kind of long for a non-meeting, but there's a lot of information there that's good information.
I just, in the simplest terms, you didn't find any anomalies or any issues that we need to be concerned about as a commission?
That is correct. Yep, if we found anything that we would need to be brought to your attention, we would have disclosed it here. We had, very minor items that we talked about with staff about how you do this, how you do that. Nothing that was a major issue, in my opinion. Staff is doing a very good job.
Thank you.
I can say that because I got 2 more years on my contract, so. Stephanie can pay me 2 years from now. No, I'm kidding.
I don't have any further questions to you guys.
Thank you, Neil.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Item number 2, discussion on police, fire facility, and municipal building. City Manager Kendall Francis will make comments.
Okay. I know there's been a lot of questions with the commission and with citizens as to the status of our community facilities projects, both the remodel of City Hall and construction of the standalone facility. And at the last meeting, I promised that we'd be here tonight to provide you an update as to each of those projects. To help with some of the presentation tonight, I have Brandon Clausen from PEC. There are consultants on HVAC and electrical and mechanical engineering for the City Hall remodel, and also on the standalone facility, Danny Langerot with Crosslink Construction, and Rick Kuhl with WSKF Architects. And there are principals with the design build team. And you might as well just have a seat for a little bit and we'll get to you shortly. This fall, when we brought this proposal to you, we agreed to a budget $8 million, roughly $3 million for City Hall remodel, $5 million for the standalone. And one caveat to that was we would be pursuing state historic tax credits for the remodeling of City Hall in about the amount of anticipated $500,000. Let's see, the last meeting in June, I believe it was, Dennis Jacobs gave you an update on the windows, replacement of the windows for City Hall. He also briefly touched on some of the challenges that we were having with State Historic Preservation Office in regards to the restrictions or the guidelines that we were having to follow to qualify for the tax credits. Since that time, in discussions among staff and some input with PEC, I'm here tonight to recommend that we move away from pursuing the tax credits. I'll be able to show you that we can present a revenue neutral proposal, and also that the extended timeline for construction, the loss of functionality, as well as aesthetics of City Hall will outweigh the benefit of the tax credits. Our original budget, like I said, gave to you is broke down here on the left, $3 million. At the time we told you, we expected it to be substantially inflated. But for construction budget, we needed to do that. As we've worked through this process, we've been able to better refine each of those areas. And we'll just start first with window replacement. Original budget $410,000. Well, we now have a signed contract for windows, $323,500, about a $90,000 reduction. The west stairway, original budget was $200,000. We have refined it to $125,000. We think that may still be a little high, but we're comfortable leaving it there. Our original plan was to run the stairway from third floor uninterrupted all the way to first floor. However, after talking with PEC and doing some looking at it, we can bring the stairway from third floor down to second floor. Then anyone in the fire stairway can exit into the common areas of second floor and then exit the building and still be within code. PEC has given us a structural cost estimate of just over $16,000 for the stairway. Now, that doesn't include walls, fire doors, some of the other things that are included with that construction of it. So that's where, again, when I say $125,000, we're very comfortable with that number. Asbestos removal is where we're going to see substantial savings. The original budget was $160,000, and you can see we've refined it to $5. And that's basically because our original plan was to remove asbestos. Since that time, we have decided that we can encapsulate the asbestos. The majority of it occurs in the 9x9 floor tiles that are throughout the building, but we're going to need to level the floors, and so using a floor leveling compound will allow us to level the floors and encapsulate the asbestos so that it will no longer be an issue and we don't have to pay the cost of removing that. Mold remediation, $100,000 is what we originally budgeted. As we've refined it, we're looking at $50,000 now. The 95% of the mold remediation will occur with the replacement of the windows. The additional that is left is on the third floor, predominantly in the courtroom along the south wall. Moisture is trapped between the vinyl wallpaper and the sheetrock. We'll be able to remove that at a much reduced cost and remediate that issue. Engineering fees, originally $200,000. Brandon gave us a discount. He said we didn't have to pay him that much, but since that time we've been able to negotiate the fees with PEC, and we're comfortable at the $100,000 mark. Interior remodeling remains at $1.7 million. When we first made this proposal, commissioners asked that we would verify our numbers with local contractor. We did that. The range that we were given was well within the first budgetary number that we gave you. Since that time, we've been able to reconfirm that number from two separate sources of recent projects very similar to what we're doing. So we're absolutely comfortable with the cost per square footage that we are figuring. Contingencies, $230,000. It's roughly 10% of the project cost. So original budget $3 million. We refined it to 2.533. Essentially, it's a cost-neutral proposition. And if you note that at the bottom, there's the note SHPO costs. 25 to 35% higher. We've asked Brandon and his team to give us an estimate of how much additional the construction costs would be should we follow historic preservation route. They estimate 25 to 35%, but that would not include soffit construction, finishing the gypsum board, some of the general contractor work. So we're looking at an additional $500,000 to $700,000 if we continue with the tax credits. Now, again, that would qualify us for tax credits. Well, that's only the first piece of this. Talked about the aesthetics and functionality. And Dennis and Brandon, please interject at any time. As I kind of walk through this, Dennis is much more well-versed in some of these areas than I am. The three of us traveled to Topeka and met with the officers from the State Historic Preservation Office to really sit down and define what would be allowed and what would not be allowed as we do this remodeling. Some of the first things says you cannot reuse the marble in the lobby to close wall openings. Our original plan, we have a lot of the original marble saved, that if we were going to take out a doorway, we would fill it in with marble. They said, no, that's not acceptable. They want to be able to stand in the lobby and look down the hallways and all those areas, and it should look exactly like it did when it was first opened, whatever year that was, 29. And so existing door frames must remain in the lobby and public spaces. If we had a door that we needed to remove, our intent was to put marble there, but they said, no, you have to put in the original doors. You paint the glass opaque, you remove the doorknob, and you nail it shut. So you have, so that you can see that it looks original, but you really don't have a function. Unable to meet ADA handicap regulations for clearance at doors. Essentially, there are some doors that literally are not wide enough for wheelchairs to go through. Dennis can speak to that more in depth if you have questions. And this next one is a little bit more in his realm. Building's non-uniform structural system limits the wall placement and office configurations. And it has to do with the way the, Dennis, maybe you could just speak to that, help explain what that means, really.
Sure. In 1929, when the building was constructed, they built, the system they used to build with was if they had a load from the floor above that needed to have a certain amount of resistance through a column size, they made that column just the size they needed in order to serve that function. So there are columns that are, let's say, 16 inches by 16 inches. You go to the next bay and there wasn't anything on the floor above, so that column is 12 inches by 12 inches. And because the wall upstairs was supported on a column or a beam, they shifted the column line over 6 inches or 2 foot 6 inches or 4 feet in order to place the column where they wanted, regardless of what it did to the symmetry and the logistics of using the forms from floor to floor or using the same size forms from column to column. And there are 100 and some columns in the building. So they just, not randomly, but when you look at it, it appears random because they only built to the size that was needed regardless of any uniformity. And the same thing carries through with the beams that connect between the columns. Those horizontal beams, some of them will be 24 inches deep and 18 inches wide, and right next to it, because of the load that was above, you'll have a beam that is 18 inches deep and 12 inches wide. And then you'll go back to the next bay and you'll go back to the first space. So there's no uniformity in the sizes of the beams, nor is there in the lining up of the beams, because they just shifted with the columns. In addition to that, in current construction, typically you have economies by having your beams all run in one direction. In this building, there are some beams on some floors that run north-south. There are some beams on the same floors or different floors that run east-west, and there's not at the time they felt that there was a logic to what they were doing. But in terms of trying to provide some uniformity to the construction contractor, there is none. It was strictly done as it pertained to the specific loads that they were designed to carry. The State Historic Preservation Office has told us that they would prefer to have us lay out our office petitions so that they align with the beams, so that they can see adjacent to the new walls what the original ceilings look like. Instead of running a wall 3 or 4 feet away from a beam, they want us to adjust the size of the room, not because of the function in the room, but to align that wall with the existing structural system. And because of the irregularity of the structural system, you end up with a bunch of random walls that are not where they need to be because of the function of the administration on that floor, but because of the old original structural system, and it has compromised the spaces. It would put, for example, a column in the middle of a conference room, or it would put an office that was very narrow in relation to its length, because in some cases you might have 12 feet between columns, and in that same area you might have 25 feet between columns in the other direction. So you end up with offices that don't really function efficiently for a 1 or a 2 person office. It just became very cumbersome to try to meet the requirements for the tax credits with the requirement to have the building function properly when the walls were laid out for 21st century use.
Thank you. We look at the next one. Unable to use accessible lay-in ceiling systems except in 3 interior hallways. In layman's, a drop ceiling like you see here tonight. We're unable to do that. The note there, the SHPO wants to see the structure of the building. So to accommodate that, ceilings would have to be hard surface sheetrock and textured to match the original plaster ceilings, which in turn, where these are removable and you can access for maintenance anything above it, we would have to furnish and install several access panels in that sheetrock, and when I say several, probably in the dozens. So you would have dozens of random access panels in key points for HVAC controls and maintenance. And also, as we go down to the first floor, the existing piping and conduit that's on the first floor would have to remain exposed. There would be no way to cover that, and then especially over around the elevator, there's large bundles of electrical conduit and or water pipes and sewer pipes, those things, that would have to remain exposed. Next one says, cannot put out exterior plaster walls. When we first began this process, it was our understanding that at least minimal furring of the walls would be allowed, that we would be able to run conduit and electrical boxes behind sheetrock walls. When we met with SHPO in Topeka, they said absolutely not, that would not be acceptable at any level. And as a result, we're going to have surface mount conduit and receptacles running helter-skelter throughout the building. They did say that we could try to utilize new construction where it was allowed, but as Dennis explained, some of that new construction is going to be less than efficient. Then the note about encapsulating suspected carcinogens, there are some in that plaster that have been identified that if we were allowed to fur the walls and encapsulate that. The HVAC ductwork, again, this is maybe better a question for Brandon or Dennis, but because of the restrictions, we're going to have a much more complex layout of HVAC ductwork. Brandon, maybe you could speak to that just a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. So, like Dennis said, the building was built in 1929, and at that time there wasn't air conditioning and heating like you might see today. So, the SHPO requirements are basically saying we want to see this building look just like it did back in 1929. So, where we will have split system units for heating and air, we'll have to run ductwork. And so in our exterior offices where that historic preservation is of primary importance to SHPO, we won't have any exposed ductwork in there. So it's either got to be above these new gyp ceilings, or it's got to be run in these three corridors that are secondary corridors that could have a drop ceiling, and then have some sidewall type diffusers that would allow air into these spaces. So if you want to get to this stuff, you have to put access panels in, because we have, again, hard ceilings. If you want to balance the system, we want to balance how much airflow is coming out in each office, for instance, you've got to have an access door to get to the dampers that are up in the ductwork, which are now concealed. So again, from a practical standpoint, the hard lids, the hard ceilings, all of those things don't make the HVAC system practical to adjust and maintain. There are sanitary sewer pipes that run underneath the floor above, so if those ever were to leak, you would have to cut out large portions of the gyp ceilings in order to get up and repair those pipes, and we all know that those things will leak eventually. So with a lay-in ceiling, you have a much more flexibility in getting up for maintenance. You can have junction boxes above the ceiling, whereas if you had a gyp plaster ceiling, you couldn't have any junction boxes. So there's quite a few reasons why it's more practical to have an accessible ceiling system throughout the building. And the accessible ceiling can still look good. It'll be new. So that's kind of some of the reasons that we're talking about the difficulties in routing ductwork and maintainability if we had to go with the SHPO rules.
Thank you. Finally, a couple other things. The original window seals, which have been removed as part of the demolition, they would require that they would be replaced with matching wood, which at the time in 1929, a 2x4 was actually a 2x4. So the window seals that are 2 inches thick, 2x4 now is 1 3/4. We would be manufacturing or probably milling down, planing down larger pieces of wood to replace that, instead of being allowed to use a more durable, water-resistant, mildew-resistant type material. The lobby and public light fixtures, I was never in the building when it was operating, but I was always told it was very dark in the lobby areas. They want us to match the original one lamp fixtures. And if we don't have them, which we still do have them, but if we hadn't, they wanted us to manufacture those and replicate those so that we could keep that original look and its original function. So aesthetically and functionality is just not there for a modern office facility. But here's the design as we have it right now, and this area and the pointer isn't going to show up, but this is the south west corner. It used to be the commission room, and these are some of this is probably the first area that SHPO was focusing on as far as with the way we had changed doors around. There was a door here that would be removed that wasn't going to be allowed. Dennis can reconfigure this if he has to meet their demands, but that's going to create a ripple effect throughout the entire building, and we're already limited as far as functionality and where walls can be placed because of windows, and then as he talked about the structural system, that just makes it even that much more challenging. But finally, the last reason is construction, the construction timeline. If we choose to continue pursuing tax credits, first we're going to have to redesign the hallways and some of those rooms that I just talked about to meet SHPO standards. Dennis gave himself till September to get that done. And then everything that we do has to be approved by SHPO at every level. So we factor in about a 30-day turnaround for them to approve it. Once that final design is approved, then Brandon and his team can finalize HVAC and electrical systems. And again, there'll be some approval. From that, they can take completion of bid documents, gets us to January of 2017. SHPO would review them. Again, we figure a 30-day turnaround, puts us in February. Tax credits and advertising for bids probably could happen simultaneously. So let's say March, bidding period in May. After you advertise for bids, about a month, then award a contract in June, start construction in July. That's a year from today. But let's say we've been able to fast track that and take 4 months off of that. That still puts us construction of March of 2017. February if we're really lucky. Really lucky. Our non-tax credit schedule, however, completion of bid documents, Brandon says that we're about probably a 6-week turnaround if we were to give them the go-ahead that they could have bid documents ready to go in September, advertise for bids at the same, a bidding period into October, about a month's time. We award a contract in November, start construction in December of this year. So we're talking probably anywhere from a 3 to 7 month shorter time frame if we move away from the tax credits. And again, the benefits of moving away outweigh the need for the revenue from the tax credits, because we're confident that we can do it in a revenue neutral situation. The final thing that I'd like to point out, we've been talking about first floor a little bit. We know that the plan is to bring customer service back to first floor, but that still leaves a few thousand square feet of unused space, and there's been some talk about possibility of consolidating county offices. I've worked with Commissioner Brown a little bit. He's kind of been my point of contact with the county, and he's kind of looked into some of these. The health department was one of the first options, if maybe they'd be interested in bringing their operations as well as the tag office into a consolidated unit over on the first floor. But I have not spoken with the health department directly. The feedback that I'm receiving is it would not be their preference to move. They own their current building, so if they were to move, then they would have a building to dispose of. The tag office already has very substantially low rent, so they don't have a lot of incentive other than the possibility of maybe a newer facility. My recommendation is that we meet a need that we have here in Coffeyville and create a business incubator we use partial section of that space on first floor and create a business incubator. We have funds that have been set aside, just a little over $200,000 in our business development training center funds, and they're set aside for that very purpose for business development training initiatives. In addition, there are grants through the eCommunities and Network, which is Networks Kansas, as well as USDA Rural Development, to provide computers, desks, fax machines, copy machines, those types of equipment for business incubators. My idea is that we give entrepreneurs here in Coffeyville an opportunity to a low-cost start at a business, give them an incubation time, and then help them to find a permanent facility here in Coffeyville. We have a lot of entrepreneur programs that are starting. Most recently, the high school, obviously community college, CCC, ICC with their Fab Lab, and most importantly, it goes right to one of your strategic planning goals, which is to create jobs here in Coffeyville and to see and grow new businesses. I've had Dennis put this together. This is the first floor. We would only be utilizing the southwest corner. That's essentially the original design of the building as far as office layouts. I had him put the walls back in, hallway access here would allow for 3 to 4 businesses, incubation offices, and the part to the northwest and the southeast would remain undeveloped at this time. However, not only is there a need within the city of Coffeyville, but in the community for large meeting spaces. You know, I would like to see, as we work through that, developing a large meeting room, but those squares that you see are the columns that Dennis and Brandon alluded to, and how they're random and how they can easily disrupt an office space. So those would be challenges if we were to have large interrupted, meeting space. Do you guys have questions about that, about anything on the City Hall? Again,
Before we go on to the standalone, can we address these
yeah, absolutely.
issues
Yeah.
before? First of all, my question is, I don't know if you can probably hear me, probably not. Yeah, that's not there. My question is that abandoning the tax credits, that's going to bring us in substantially lower than the estimated budget that was put forth before. It's going to bring us down to $2,533,500,
Correct.
which is almost what, $500,000
$500,000.
savings. Why, if we choose to do that, is it going to take until December of this year to get this thing going? Because at this point, I'll just be honest with you. I'm ready to move the trailers over there in the parking lot because you guys are functioning just fine right over there.
Well, I'd hate to say that we're functioning just fine. My staff is very resilient, and they do a great job
And they'll
with
continue
what
to
they
do
have.
that. But quite frankly, I'm just sick of this. Because
There is no one who wants to move any faster than I do, but I can tell you my staff, they have been in those temporary trailers for over 2 years now. They've put up with it a lot longer than I have. I know they want to get out of there, and I want to get that for them.
So
and
how do we trim that down?
Brandon, can you speak to that any?
Yeah. So from our standpoint, we, at PEC, Mechanical, Electrical, Structural on this project, we've got to get a finalized floor plan, and then we've got to have some time to go in and design the mechanical and the electrical systems, as well as the stair that goes up to the third floor. So there's going to be a little bit of time to get the floor plan finalized from Dennis's side, and then we need about 6 weeks in order to get that, get the MEP and the structural design, and that's actually a pretty aggressive schedule from the standpoint of engineering on a facility like this.
So my next question for Mr. Francis is, we've already laid the contract for the windows.
Yes.
Correct? Is what he's doing have anything to do with windows?
No.
So why are we not over there banging windows out as we speak?
The window contractor will be here Thursday. Will be to do some measurements, and they still have to, and Dennis could speak to this a little better, but they'll be measuring and manufacturing the windows. It is an ongoing process right now.
There's a process that you go through. The contract was let. The contractor came over and did his own measuring. He didn't rely on my drawings for accuracy or the original blueprints for accuracy. He came over and physically measured the windows. He took that information and went to the window manufacturer, who's a Kansas corporation. They prepared fabrication drawings, which lays out every window in the building, 150 some windows in the building. They lay them out to scale. They detail which configuration and profiles there are at each different condition that we have. And we have windows that are 2 feet wide. We have windows that are 5 feet wide. We have windows that are 6 feet tall. We have windows that are 8 feet tall. Every individual window is laid out so that they can identify them and fabricate them. They have prepared those drawings in this time since the contract was awarded. I received them yesterday. I reviewed them yesterday and part of today. The contractor is coming down day after tomorrow with his set of drawings. He will go to the site and he will verify that what the manufacturer has said they're going to make is what he needs in order to infill those windows. Once those drawings are approved, then they will go back to the manufacturer. They're custom windows. They're not something you go to Lowe's and buy. They are made for those window openings, for that profile, and everyone is made from stock length of material that they have in their warehouse. That process is 8 to 10 weeks from the time they get the approved drawings to when they will finish with windows ready to ship. I've talked to the contractor, and he has in turn talked to the manufacturer. We're going to see if we can get half of the windows or a third of the windows, one floor of the windows delivered earlier so he can get started. That's between the contractor and the manufacturer's window schedule, how they will proceed. The contractor, when he submitted his proposal and when he signed his contract, gave us the number of days contract time in order to complete the project. That process started when we got approval from SHPO, because at that time we were still under their umbrella, that they would approve those windows. So his contract time has started, but it didn't start when he signed the contract. It started when we got SHPO's approval of that window, because we bid 5 different manufacturers, and they had to approve the one that was the low bidder.
So what you're saying is there's a lot of behind-the-scenes activity going on.
Contractor's been here 3 times since he was awarded the contract, and like I said, he's coming day after tomorrow to with the shop drawings in hand to verify the dimensions and the profiles. I've reviewed them. I've noticed some, I won't call them errors, but misinformation or misunderstanding on the manufacturer's part of where we wanted to place one of the cross members in the windows, in a certain of the windows. They had it placed at the midpoint, but the windows in the original building had an offset. It wasn't equal halves like we have in the replacements that are there now. There was a tall section at the top and a small section at the bottom. And so we're replicating what was in the original building so that from the street you have more of a view of what the original building looked like back in 1929 in terms of the window pattern and fenestration.
So can you go ahead and start the mold remediation on this 3rd floor that doesn't include the windows to get this process started?
It would be counterproductive to do mold remediation until the new windows are in, because the existing windows are the cause of the mold problems.
Okay. And you're confident on December of 2016 as the start date?
If I have to be there with a hammer myself, yeah, we'll get started.
I think that I'll concede that there's a lot of behind-the-scenes activity going on.
I can assure you there is.
However, the people want progress.
Absolutely.
And the people want to see progress.
They deserve progress.
And as much as the behind-the-scenes activity is going on, people don't see that. And granted, we can get up here, you can get up here and tell them how much is going on, but that doesn't feed the public perception that we're sitting here twiddling our thumbs. It doesn't satisfy the public perception.
And
whether it's right or wrong, that's the perception.
Yeah. No, and I'll take full responsibility for it, because we've taken our time to make certain, if we get away from the avenue that we began, that we could do it. We didn't just make this decision at a whim. A lot of consultation with our engineers, with staff. We were trying the best that we could to follow SHPO's recommendations and the restrictions they were putting on. It just got to the point that we had to, after the day we met with them in Topeka, we stood in the parking lot afterwards, and discussions got real serious then, because we realized that we were probably at the point that we couldn't justify going forward with the plan that we had.
And I'm telling you that the two things that are important, and I can't speak to this for this entire commission, nor would I even try. However, the things that are important to me is that we get this project done, and that we get it done in a fiscally responsible manner,
Absolutely.
and that, number two, that you understand that your legacy in Coffeyville, Kansas, for the future that will follow you will be these projects. And the thing is that you're giving me your, basically you're going to be over there with a hammer in December whacking on that building if no one else is. And I'm taking you at your word.
Absolutely.
Okay. Because, I mean, I can't express my disdain for this entire project because of the debacle that it has been. Not of any fault of your own, because you walked into the debacle.
Hey,
But it's just, everybody got him a piece of the pie.
every day when I have to come to work in temporary trailers and face staff knowing that they've been there for over 2 years, and they get by baking in the summer because the air doesn't work well, or because the walls are paper thin and you can hear every conversation, or we're making do however we have to make do, it makes me that much more determined to give them something that they'll be proud to come back to, the city of Coffeyville will be proud of. And it takes a little time. We got to get it right.
And that's what I said, is that, I mean, the fact of the matter is that, you know, there's no secret, we're going on 12 months, and we've not seen a stick in the ground. So I just want to make that clear, that I'm ready to go.
So am I. And again, for both of these projects, I'll take full responsibility that we're not moving as fast as I want to. But again, give us the opportunity to take our time and do it right. And I don't mean this in any disrespect to anybody before me. I don't want to build a stadium that someone's figuring out later how to take care of. We're going to build these things. We're going to build them right. But it does take time.
And a lot of that, like I said, everybody's got a responsibility to take in this issue. And, you know, I'm willing to take mine as long as everybody else is willing to take theirs. Yep. And the thing is that as long as we're on the same page, that we need to get moving.
Absolutely.
And you know, I don't come to, well, I kind of do, but I don't come in pounding on the desk or the commission table every 2 weeks and say we need to get moving, but I want to make it under no certain terms. This needs to go.
Yeah.
So we're clear on that.
Yes.
And I can't speak for the rest of these folks.
Well, I'm sure I could speak for them. I know they're citizens, if nothing else. They want to see this brought to fruition.
Well, I meant the rest of the commission.
Well, and I'm
perhaps they have something to say they'd like to say.
Oh, you got all that covered. Hardcore. Is there going to be any kind of, and these guys back here may be able to answer it, any kind of artist drawings of what we're going to see inside there? One of my things I've asked before, and it seems small in comparison to a lot of the other issues, is are the windows going to be half hidden by the hanging ceiling like they were before?
Absolutely not.
I mean, in the grand scheme, that's kind of a small thing, but I'd kind of like to have some idea of what it's going to look like.
So an architectural rendering.
Yeah, I mean, technology we got today, you can almost go inside buildings you've never been to or haven't even been built yet. And I don't know how much that costs, if it's in the budget, but, and I'm not saying spend millions of dollars to do it. I was just asking if there's something like that we're going to see at some point, or maybe somebody with a good imagination can paint a picture, you know.
It would be this person here.
I mean, I'm not saying I expect that. You've made some pretty valid points here, and I'll go right along with him. I don't expect you to get a hammer out, but I'd sure like to see it get on the. I've been on the commission for 2 years next month, and I'm pretty at home with the old picnic table by now, but I'd kind of like to be over there. So that's that's really all I got. There's a lot of things I can't control. I'm just waiting on you to do it. You want this microphone?
I don't know how many days go by that I don't have someone coming by and asking me, what's the update, whether it be work or out in the community. I know people are tired of it. I just don't understand what took us so long to figure out that we didn't want to go with the historical society, with the historical side of it. Why it takes so long to decide, well, you know, at first I believe the thought was, well, they're going to decide in January, and then now it's July, and we're just now deciding to step away.
Hard to walk away from that much money. So you try to accommodate their requirements in the scheme of the work. But the more we got into the plan and the more we visited with them, the harder it was to comply without making wholesale changes to the layouts.
And some of it was the fact that the overall plan, it's hard to know, but once you start really finalizing and get to the details, then that's when they would say, no, you can't do that. Well, we've put a lot of time and effort in to get into that detail, and so then we backed up and started in a different route to make those corrections. And again, it's the ripple effect. Well, we made a change here that affected 6 other rooms that tried to align with their way of thinking.
So is it misinformation on their part, not telling us they wanted it exactly like they had it back then, or is it our fault for not knowing, or?
I will not blame SHPO. I will take the blame for it because this is our project. We can do this building like they want it to be done. It will take a lot longer. It will cost a lot more, and we won't be happy with it when we're done. I mean, that's what it boils down to.
And I agree with that. I just think citizens are looking for someone to point the finger at.
And they should point it at me. I'm the city manager. These are my projects.
And you also came in and got, you know, I remember the day we took you on your tour of the building and, you know, some of your thoughts on it. So, and I know where you stood on it then, and it's been a long process since you were first brought here, and it'll continue to be a long process. But we need to, like Chris said, hurry this up. I'm hoping we can start before December, but if, you know, just make it public to everybody what's going on, step by step by step. I know it's a pain, but it'll help a lot.
Yeah, move on to
We're going to move on to the.
Yeah, I request that we do a 10-minute break before we move on. Intermission.
Can we make it 5? or as short as possible. I know we have people in from out of town. I don't want to make them be here all night. So.
intermission. I'd like to call an audible here and go directly to comments from the public because we have people waiting, and this next part of the presentation might take a little bit. So I'd like to open up from the comments to the public. Everyone is free to speak. Our topic that's not concerning something on the agenda.
Come on up.
So come on up to whoever wants to speak.
Yeah. Commissioners, City Management, I'm Gail Smith, the owner of Dollar Tire and Burger Hill Fireworks. And on behalf of Andy Duncan Blakes and Lawns by Bradley, Mike Bradley, and Debbie Carter, we would just like to thank the city, commend the city. The Walter Johnson Park was just a beautiful venue for what we put on out there. Public Works, Water Department, Light Department, just absolutely obliged. You know, everything that we needed out there, golf carts, dumpsters, barrels. We put on a good event. We had about 160 cars at the car show. Excuse me. Even though we had a little rain in the morning, we still had 160 cars. We give a ton of stuff away all day long, from the city businesses, dinners, gift certificates, items. We had approximately 20, 25 vendors out there that came out, and they were just ecstatic. They just, you know, everything. The reason it was such a good event is the city obliged us to get the park free. The vendors were free. They made a little money. We had a good car show. The band that we brought down from Kansas City was really good. And Kirk Stevens and Cedar Evans at Foggy Bottom Fireworks Productions, they worked from Thursday till Saturday setting it up and put on a really good fireworks show. All in all, I just got to say thank you for letting us do it, and we're going to do it again if the city will bless us. That's all I really had to say.
I want to thank Gail. I mean, the fireworks show that we had out there this year was a professional fireworks show. I heard from people from Kansas City to Wichita, they don't get a fireworks show like we put on in Coffeyville, Kansas. I mean, instead of 1 or 2 fireworks going in the air, we're having 400 or 500 fireworks going off in the air. I heard one complaint that it was too long. I said, I'm sorry. I didn't know your car couldn't start and you couldn't drive off from it. I apologize. And we'll try harder next year to get your car started for you. I didn't see any complaints for the day. The rain in the morning, we couldn't help it. Kept probably 10% of our vendors and our cars from coming in, but we'll take care of that. I mean, I just can't think of no negatives. All my volunteers that came out, they came out and they didn't even ask what to do. They just found stuff to do, and that makes a great show.
The reserves.
Yeah, and the Sheriff Reserves, Montgomery County Reserves, they took care of us all day long, stayed there till the end of it.
Help with the traffic afterwards.
Yeah, and we didn't even imagine the traffic that we were going to have. You guys, if you were out there, you seen the traffic that started showing up at 6 o'clock. I estimated 7,500 people out there. And that was on this side of the highway. I didn't get to the other side of the highway, but I heard that they were lined up all the way past Walmart going to the east. They were just stopping watching the fireworks. The car show guys that came down for the car show, we have 4 states worth of different cars coming in. They said that they're going to be back next year. All my vendors that came in have already asked for spots for next year because they said when this gets out that everybody's going to be calling wanting a vending space, and they know we're going to run out. So I think the show was a success. Three guys started it. We got fourth guy in here, then Carter's came in, had Justin here helping us. Justin, don't shake your head no, because you brought on all my volunteers that last week, so don't you shake your head no. It takes a team to make success. You know, I hear in Coffeyville all the time, why don't we have this, why don't we have that? This is how it starts. Three people just started talking, and it just started rolling, getting the community involved. And I just hope the rest of the community sees that. If they want something, step forward and do it instead of just sit back and complain about it. That's about all I have to say.
We made a pyrotechnician out of Kendall. And we give Cindy the VIP tour of the fireworks company out there, how they were setting it up. And
You never seen that happen? That's something that you have to see. I bet you there was 5 miles worth of wires out there.
yeah, Kirk said they had over 320 man-hours out there setting that fireworks show up. It's unbelievable, 40,000 reports in 30 minutes.
That's 5 laptops, 5 guys on laptops setting off
They were
fireworks.
doing everything off of blasting wire and computers.
Well,
Everything. I gotta commend Jim Taylor, that crane with the American flag over that train. That was just beautiful.
Like, was you done? I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Are you done?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. When I've seen that you guys were here, like I was saying earlier, I don't think you need to be thanking us. We need to be thanking you. I was there for a lot of the day, and I saw what you did. I saw a lot of the stuff you did before that. I know how much money you spent, how much time you spent, and to add on to what you were saying, people, why can't Caulfield do it? We got a whole lot of wonders and very few doers, and you guys are doers. And you put on a hell of a show, and it was a great time.
Took a lot of legwork.
We thank you. I mean, it was a great time.
Took an awful lot of legwork, a lot of phone calls, from all the digital boards, up and down 11th, Chamber of Commerce to college, Downey Insurance, Community National, Community State, Equity Bank. Walked in and said, will you promote? Everybody really obliged us.
There was a couple of times the people that I was sitting with in the area watching the fireworks, and myself, it was just like, oh, wow. You could just hear the people. It was the best fireworks show I ever saw. It was, at times, just, good Lord, that's a big deal going on right there.
Fireworks company that I've dealt with them for 9 years, and they're just like family to us, when we have our dealings. And Kirk said that, I didn't have one last year at my house because of the knee surgeries and all that, but he said, I saved the date the Saturday after the 4th. He said, I always saved it for you. So, that's another thing with the city's blessing, the weekend after the 4th. Instead, next year, the 4th falls on a Tuesday. People go home at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, get up and go to work the next day or whatever. The weekend, they got time to recoup. That's the reason I always had it on the weekends after the 4th. I know there's some people, I did have a couple, why can't we celebrate the 4th on the 4th? I think it was worth the wait, but.
I believe it was. My family went out there. We participated in the cardboard car thing. We really enjoyed it. I wish there would have been more participants, but that's what it was. We enjoyed it. We enjoyed the food, the festivities. Carter Automotive really stepped up for you guys. I appreciate them.
Yeah, Debbie was really. It just knocked the wind out of her sails when that simulator burnt in Iowa right before they came down here.
A lot of people didn't know that simulator joyride, they just got it loaded on the trailer, heading for Coffeyville. They stopped to get something to eat, go back out, totally engulfed. $500,000 worth of.
I did talk to her the other day, though, and she said that, they're on the list for next year. They will have something there.
My family enjoyed it. I heard it from, on the social media everywhere, video and everything. It was quite the ordeal. My kids loved the fireworks. I enjoyed it. I thank you guys for doing this. Keep on doing this, and each year we'll snowball and get it bigger and bigger. Anything I can do to help next year and get involved with, just let me know.
Anyway, that's all, I guess that's all we got.
I just want to say one thing. I think that this whole celebration was great, and I agree with Commissioner Cashler. This will continue to become bigger and better. However, I also wanted to point out that Dollar Tire is a great corporate citizen for Coffeyville. I think that one thing that I needed to mention is that this is just one thing that everyone seen at this particular time. Consistently, Dollar Tire and Gail are out at the Fair and Rodeo every year, and they're out there working with the kids and buying the kids projects and things like that. And, you know, that goes back to just like our budget session discussions. Best way to make an impact on a community is to keep kids down the right path. And Gail can tell you from experience, there's been a couple of old boys that may have taken the wrong path if it wasn't for certain folks. And I want to appreciate you, and you know what I'm talking about. I appreciate you, Gail. I really do.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Phil.
Commissioners, my name is Jim C. Taylor Sr. I live at 704 Spruce in Coffeyville. I have furnished to you a copy of a letter that attached to is a letter that I sent to you and the city manager 5/21/16. I consider this a serious matter. I've supplied it here. I have supplied it to the Coffeyville Journal. It's going to be on my website and on my postings on the internet. Commissioners, I have attached a request that was made on 5/21/16 to City Manager Kendall Francis. Every member of the commission was also provided a copy of the request. I have received no response from the city manager or any commissioner. It has been brought to my attention that city engineer Thomas Osborne is presently continuing the criminal intentional coercing of customers with whom I have valid contracts to ignore and abandon their agreements with me for the delivery of all and partial quantities of concrete, used sidewalk and street paver bricks, asphalt, and soil that are my property and are now being delivered to ownership of the city of Coffeyville. I am requesting that you direct the city manager to instruct the city department heads and employees responsible for the continuation of this activity by Thomas Osborne to return my property in the condition it was at the time of the improper seizure by the city of Coffeyville. My monetary loss at this point is the cost of replacement base to accomplish the final elevation and surface area for the asphalt millings that are presently stored on site. They were part of the materials coerced from my legitimate contracts. That amount can be conservatively estimated from the volume of material the city now has stored at the shale pit on South Walnut, and the materials the city engineer is now seizing from upcoming projects, which are materials already contracted for, at more than $150,000. Please instruct me on the method of claim you desire me to pursue for payment. If this activity on my property was not proper and legally correct, detection of violation should have been determined at the outset more than 3 years ago, and not at a time and circumstance that is now causing substantial monetary loss and is an assault on my business integrity. It is not justifiable for our city employees and staff to be used in this criminal-type behavior in performing their responsibilities while our elected officials ignore direct and willingly participate in such management and abuse of our city's authority.
I'm not going to comment a lot on it, but I will defend staff. I don't know Thomas Osborne a great deal, but what I do know of him is that he's an honest young man. So to say that he is making intentional criminal actions against you, I would disagree. And I would also suggest that you contact the city attorney if you feel that you've been wronged in any way. But I don't believe anybody here has done anything intentional, criminal or otherwise.
I think that you made some accusations towards the city, and I suggest that I'd refer you to the city attorney for further comment. And I probably would suggest that you won't get a comment from the city at this point, because I think that you made accusations, and I think that we will refer you to our legal counsel.
All I'm asking is that you acknowledge that you have received what I supplied to you this evening that very well outlines the activities that have transpired over the last 3 years.
I've received it right here, and I've just turned that over to our legal counsel.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much. That's what I expected, and that's all I desire. Thank
All right,
you.
have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything to bring before the commission? Seeing that there is nobody else, we'll go into the second part of our presentation.
Okay, for the second part of this presentation about the standalone facility, I'm going to turn it over to Danny Langerot with Crosslink Construction and Rick Kuhl from WSKF Architects. I guess before I do that, I do want to point out just a couple of things in opening. When this first approached this project, the blue ribbon panel had recommended the construction of a standalone facility, and they had estimated the per square foot cost of construction to be roughly $150 a square foot. Chris, they're saying the public cannot hear us. Again, they had estimated the cost to be $150 a square foot for construction. We never embraced that number. Staff and I believe that a more accurate number was probably $185 to $200 a square foot. As we've went through the programming phase and the design of the standalone, once we've done the geotechnical sampling of the Gillum properties and be able to refine the numbers a little bit closer, the initial cost estimate came in at $239 a square foot. Puts us substantially over budget from what we had anticipated. Rick and Danny are here tonight to explain the steps that we're taking to refine that and getting that cost down within budget. Also, I do want to point out that there is a CDBG community facilities grant that we will be applying for in an amount of $400,000. We were originally told that we would not be eligible because the fire chief's office and the police chief's office would be in this facility, and the Department of Commerce views that as essential administrative functions of government, so that disqualifies us. However, this money originates from Housing and Urban Development, and the more that we have researched this, we understand that HUD has the ability to exempt us from those requirements. So I have placed a letter asking the Department of Commerce to review our application and make a determination of our eligibility, which we expect them to deny. And then once we have that written denial, then we're able to appeal to HUD to allow us to continue in the process for this grant, which, although it is a competitive grant, we feel that we'd have exceptionally strong case. We can demonstrate the need. We can more than demonstrate the financial match that would be required. And so this is a process that we will be engaging Southeast Kansas Regional Planning Commission to help facilitate with this grant. And I believe, Tricia, correct me if I'm wrong, October is the deadline? November 1st is the deadline for application. So we're actively pursuing that. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rick and Danny. Rick?
Thank you, Kendall. I'm going to do the first part of the presentation tonight. I'm going to primarily focus on the planning and design work in terms of where we're at today, so that you have a current understanding of the design that's being proposed. I'm going to walk through the two departments, the police department and the fire department, and also talk with you a little bit about shared facilities, because there's some common space that can be utilized by both departments that result in some efficiencies and some reduction in terms of square footage based on that shared facility. Looking at the police department, these items up here are the major categories of space use within the police department, starting with the administration, evidence and property, and then ending up with the communications and dispatch. So at the bottom, you'll see a number that's 8,453 square feet of space that represents those various divisions within the police department. Keep in mind that those are net square footage numbers. So a net square footage number, as a point of reference, is the dimensions within the walls of each particular space. So that's the net square footage, and we're going to talk about that in comparison to gross square footage here in a little bit. Gross square footage would be as if I would draw a line around the exterior wall of the building. That would represent the gross square footage of the particular building, the entire building. So we're at 8,453 for police in terms of square footage requirements. For the fire department, we're at 10,541 square feet, made up of administration, living quarters, building support, and apparatus. So largest piece of that is the apparatus requirements, as you would probably expect in terms of space requirements for the fire department. The shared space for the police and fire represents obviously a common lobby space, restrooms, EOC, which is an acronym for Emergency Operations Center, and that space will be dual function space, so it will be functioning both as a EOC as well as training for both police and fire. They have their respective training requirements, and they'll be sharing that space and trading off use of that space, as well as the fitness space within the proposed design. So the fitness space would be a shared space. Anyway, 2,234 net square feet for shared space. So kind of in summary, we have a building net square footage of 21,228 square feet, which again is a net square footage. Just as a footnote, you'll see that that excludes any alternate spaces, and there has been a suggestion of including some alternate spaces for this building, should the funds allow. Gross square footage, which is a point of reference that I made at the beginning for the building, is 29,600, let's say 29,700 square feet. So the things that are included in the gross square footage would be corridors, wall thicknesses, some mechanical and electrical spaces, those spaces that really don't represent a functional space per se. They're a required space to make the building work, but not assignable per se in terms of whether you would assign space to either police or fire. Wanted to walk through fairly quickly the current design, and as you know, the facility is located at the northwest corner of 11th and Gillum, and the building is in an L configuration. This is the legend in terms of what the colors represent. So police would be primarily along Gillum, fire would be primarily along 11th. The yellow space is the shared space between police and fire. In this particular design, which is the most current design, This includes a two-story design for the fire department. So the police department is all single level. The fire department is in a two-story configuration. Wanted to look at this a little more closely. So if you recall the divisions that were laid out in terms of the police, so we had administration, we have support services, we have investigations, kind of so on and so forth. And so just as a general overview in terms of where those departments are, obviously the front door is something that would face 11th Street, so be prominent along 11th Street as you drive by. We felt that was the most predominant elevation and orientation in terms of the building. And then police would be on the right-hand side as you enter the building, fire on the left-hand side. Central lobby space, we start with kind of the administration that's at the front of the building. Dispatch is kind of buried in the center of the building for multiple reasons. Support services in terms of interview rooms, that sort of thing, would be next. One of the biggest challenges with the design for public safety these days is being able to maintain access between the public and the private spaces within those buildings. You know, we're all pretty familiar with what's happening with society today and the needs for security services and being able to provide access control. So one of the challenges with the police side of design is that there are certain spaces that the public needs to get to because they'll file a report, they need to have a conversation with someone in the police department, that sort of thing. They need to be interviewed, need to get fingerprinted. A lot of police departments are fingerprinting, obviously, for employers these days. So there are spaces that we need to give access to, and those are at the front of the building. Kind of moving further into the building, investigations is the next major use of the space. We have then patrol, which occupies a lot of the space because of the number of folks that are in the patrol division. Evidence and evidence processing is the space over here on the left-hand side. And then we get all the way to the back, and that's where detention or holding would be, is at the back of the facility. So administration, support services, investigation, dispatch, patrol, evidence, holding and processing, and then the last space at the back would be the detention area. Yes, sir.
Is there a Sally Port on there? Am I saying that right?
Is there a Sally Port on the configuration here?
There is a Sally Port that would be a fenced-in area. It would be not an enclosed area. So that is one of the alternates that's being looked at for in addition to this building. So the Sally Port, and it's been planned. We have a design that shows a Sally Port. It's not shown here because it's not currently a part of the cost estimate and the scope of work. But we have planned for a Sally Port. We've also been asked to plan for a space for their armored vehicle as well. And so those are two spaces that the police department would really like to have.
Armored vehicle inside of the building?
Would be a garage of sorts. Yeah. Yeah. So for, we think, good planning purposes, you present a design that represents the essential facilities and functions of a design, and then if you can afford to add spaces and other requirements, then those become what we call add alternates. So one add alternate would be the Sally Port. Another add alternate would be a storage space or garage, if you will, for the armored vehicle. Okay. Yeah, and there is an alternate for fire as well. You'll see the design here is 4 apparatus bays. There is an alternate for an additional apparatus bay as well. Going to the fire side, so front door is over here. Fire administration is in this area. Apparatus is obviously the major space. That was a 6,000 square foot space that I talked about earlier. There are lots of support spaces that go along with apparatus. For instance, a self-contained breathing apparatus, commonly called SCBA. So tanks that get filled, packs that are on the back of firefighters, that's breathing air. And so there's a piece of equipment in here that is used to fill those tanks. Gear, fire gear, personal protective equipment. There's a space for that. There's a space in here for decontamination. So when a firefighter comes back from an event, there's lots of particles of combustion that are on their gear, which have been demonstrated to contain carcinogens. So control of that within the space is pretty important. So those kinds of spaces that are really grouped around here. And since this is a two-story scheme, we have a stairway that's on this corner that wraps around an elevator, and we have a stairway on the other side here that provides for the second means of egress from the second floor. This design for the fire is what we call a drive-through fire apparatus bay. So we have doors that are on the north side, and we have doors that are on the outside, south side. Obviously, one of the things that's pretty critical in terms of fire and fire service is the ability to respond to an event in a timely fashion. So getting to the apparatus, getting out of the apparatus bay, and to the event is pretty critical. So drive-through bays allow for that functionality and provide a higher level of service for the fire department. Going up to the second floor, point of reference, the stairs over here in the bottom left and in the upper left. And then the second floor would be primarily living quarters. So that's private space, if you will, for fire personnel. So bunk rooms along the north side, bunk rooms along the south side, a support space in terms of storage, mechanical equipment, laundry, kind of along this wall. In the center area is the primary living space, so day room, kitchen, dining, and then other things that make this a functioning fire department in terms of bathrooms and lockers and that sort of thing.
So that each person is getting their own quarters?
Yes. So with the fire department, as you probably know, there are 3 shifts, A, B, and C, and so each of the shifts would have their own bunk, but it's a shared bunk. So the bunk room would be shared by 3 people on different shifts, but they would be individually occupied. One of the things that's happening in the fire industry these days is a design for what's called gender neutral. So you never know how many male or female personnel you're going to have on the fire department at any point in time, now and in the future. So the bunk room as a single occupant room allows for that. So it could be either male or female that's occupying the bunk room. The shared space, the yellow space that's in the center, obviously the lobby is a part of that shared space. This is the EOC room that's back here, and it's placed at that location because it can be accessed from the police department independent of the lobby space, and it also can be accessed by the fire department by coming in this corridor and then into the training room. The fitness room is back here. Again, we have an outdoor, an exterior door that would allow for police department access independent of the fire department, and then the fire department access would actually be an internal access for them. And then public restrooms that would be at the front of, in front of the EOC as well. As an EOC space, it's important to have communication between this room and the dispatch center, so you'll see a door there that leads to the dispatch center. The dispatch center will be a hardened area, so one of the things obviously is pretty important in terms of public safety is being able to maintain communication when there's an event in the city, if it were a tornado and that kind of thing. So the EOC center, the dispatch center needs to be able to function when other departments or other facilities are non-functional. Also, just as a point of reference, public safety facilities, fire, police, EMS, hospitals are all classified as essential facilities, which means that they have to be more durable in their design than other facilities from a structural standpoint. So they have, most facilities have an importance factor of 1. Essential facilities have an importance factor of 1.5. So just by their very nature of their use, they're supposed to be more durable spaces. Looking at the site plan, Gillum is over here on the right, 11th over here. So L configuration, this is the police, this is the fire, shared space in the center. You can see this little protrusion down here at the bottom, that's the entry point. And so looking at, I think we have an enlargement of this. Well, it's supposed to have an enlargement of that. Here we go. Okay, so at the top, point of reference was the Sally Port. This would be a fenced area for prisoner or detainee exchange. And, you know, the first alternate that we're looking at is the ability to provide for an enclosed Sally Port. And then above that would be a space that the armored vehicle could be located if we were fortunate to be able to add that as a scope of work. And then off of 10th Street, we have police parking, we have a dumpster, and then further down 10th Street, we have the returning drive lane for fire apparatus. And then exiting from the apparatus bay onto 11th Street and being able to go left or right. And then the third alternate is the opportunity to add one more apparatus bay to the fire apparatus. There are parking spaces, as you can see, there's 20 parking spaces for police personnel, and we have 17 parking spaces for fire personnel. Those parking requirements were determined based on the number of personnel that are going to be at the facility or at a shift change. So one of the challenges is that when there's a shift change for fire, per se, so if you've got 8 people on duty and you're exchanging 8 people, or if you've got 5 people on duty, you've got 10 people there coming and going at one time.
Is there a parking area for the public?
Parking area for the public, we've got parking over on to the east side of Gillum. Yeah. Yep. So I'm going to let Danny talk about cost.
I'm Danny Langrout with Crossley Construction. Want to talk a little bit about the costing information. Like Mr. Francis mentioned, we've been hoovering around the $236, $240 a square foot number, which is not going to work with a 5.4, 5.5 target budget that was communicated. Last meeting we had was about a week and a half ago, and we really discussed some serious items needed to happen to get this project to where it could be built for the budget that was set. With a $5.4, $5.5 million budget based on 28,000 square foot, which the recent design that Rick just talked about was about 29.6 or 29,600 square feet. So a little bit over the square footage that we need to hit, but it's still doable. At 28,000 square foot, that's $193 to $196 a square foot, and when we're hoovering around $236, we got some pretty good cutting to do. Right now, based on that design that Rick just talked about, we're somewhere in the neighborhood of $203 a square foot, and the way we got there, some VE items that we talked with Mr. Francis and his team about a couple weeks ago. Site utilities, where the city could possibly put in the site utilities, bring them to the building. We simplified the design. The last design that was budgeted had some ins and outs and was a little more difficult to construct, therefore more expensive to construct. Simpler construction methods, looking at masonry bearing CMU, stick frame structure possibly. And then there is a few other items that we haven't took out of the project yet that We do have some work to do, more programming sessions, but we do feel like that we can get to that target number and get this built and still meet the design request from the city and their space needs. So that's kind of where we're at this point. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I have some questions. I don't have any. You appreciate your time and effort coming here to present that. My question came from Mr. Francis. Where are we at currently on our, said you had a target. Can you go back one slide?
At a target of 28,000, I think right now we're at 20. The latest design puts us right at 29,000.
29,006.
And I'm not concerned with that per se. I'm concerned about our budget is 5.4 to 5.5. Where are we at on the budget?
I
With what we
think,
currently have on the table.
and we were doing this math while we were at dinner. We're at about 5.8.
So
That's 203 times 29. That's actually times 29. So we're about 588.
so
We
the money,
realize
the money that you're saving on this project over here, are you still within your original configuration?
we still, and I think you alluded to it, we probably still have a little cutting to do because 203. Our goal is sub $200 per square foot, essentially, and probably that target square footage of 28,000. So we're about 1,000 square foot off, and we need some refinements in cost, which some of the other areas you notice here, potential VE additions, reduced brick veneer, other architectural designs that before the meeting we were discussing further how we could further refine that to find those savings.
Right now, we have full height brick veneer. Also, we do have a 5% contingency in that number, which is roughly $230-some thousand.
The building will appear brick.
Yes. Right now, we have brick in our $203 square foot number.
And does the brick structurally do anything other than aesthetics to the building?
No, the brick would just be.
It's purely aesthetics. That's why that'll be one of the first areas that we look for cost savings.
So correct me if I'm wrong. We've issued bonds for these two projects here
Yes.
and on 11th Street. But the savings on what you're going to do over here can't be applied to.
Absolutely, they can. And it doesn't. I mean,
One pot.
it's one pot of money. Yes.
One big project,
It-
two different locations.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
so the thing is you're at your current level.
We still have we still have to we still have to cut to get to that target budget.
Okay, so when are we going to have a cutting session?
We were just talking about that just almost immediately.
Possibly next week, if we can coordinate with everybody's schedules.
That
And my next question is here you go with the $1 million question. When are we ready to go? Because if you guys get together on Tuesday and get this thing cut down, then we ought to be ready to roll this thing out and get this thing rolling.
Yeah, Rick and I have talked about that. If we can get a floor plan set that meets the desired budget, can turn Rick loose. And one advantage with the design build method is possibly fast track the earthwork, fast track the foundation package, where we can get that out to bid sooner. We don't see any problem starting probably by December, this year for sure.
Okay, so on Tuesday, I mean, obviously you're working for us.
Yes, sir.
Right, and when I say us, I mean the people. May I make a strong suggestion on behalf of the people? And that on Tuesday, don't go back to wherever you came from and don't go home until you get it done. Until you come up with something to present to us, that this is what we got and this is what we're rolling with. That would be a strong suggestion from the people. Do you concur?
I've seen a lot of, on the land, land, I see a lot of green space, that for a reason, where we have used that green space on what tennis courts are in the future maybe, or?
That whole site is designed for future. That's the purpose of acquiring both sites. We want future for whatever the future happens to hold for us. We don't have it planned out now, but it does give us room for growth. It gives us control over that adjoining parcel that we can dictate what happens there. There could be a fire training center there. There could be, it could be EMS. I don't know what the future has, but it's available for it.
Are we doing things are we adding things on there that are needs and not wants? There's some things that could be boiled down.
I can tell you, the first few planning sessions, or programming sessions, we put Cadillac out there, and then when we priced the Cadillac and realized it was never going to get that under budget, then the chiefs started prioritizing their needs, and they have made substantial reductions, and Rick could provide each one of those conceptual drawings that we've had to show the progress of where we started and what we're down to. Further cuts in programming, we're not going to have the facility that we need. That's why when we start looking at other areas, that's why we look at these things to realize the savings that we need. We want to have a functional, practical building. We don't need architectural showpiece that doesn't meet our needs. We want something that combines practicality and functionality. And I've asked them, they guarantee me they can get it. They're certain that they can get there. And, we'll take your suggestion. Tuesday, we'll and we'll get to work and get this hammered out.
Where in the grand scheme of things will code enforcement be?
It will continue to be in the administrative part of the fire department.
I just, going along with your car analogy of Cadillac, as long as this doesn't turn into a Pinto.
We can't. It won't service any. It won't service the
I
purpose.
want good, and they've already came from, and the police department has already came from what they got now. They need a nice step up. I think groundbreaking will be a nice shot in the arm from morale.
Absolutely.
That's what they need to see.
I absolutely agree with you that the police department needs that, but I also want to say that both departments were in subterranean facilities.
Yeah.
So they were both in poor situations. I think it'll be a benefit to both departments. I mean, it's probably obvious that I'm partial to the police department, but I think also it's a credit to the fire department that they've endured their disaster situation as well. However, I think that you said that you'll take our suggestion that on Tuesday, and I like the word suggestion, but I want to make sure that we add it's a strong
suggestion.
Extremely important suggestion.
And I will say that we haven't guaranteed Tuesday will be the date, but it will be very soon.
Without knowing exactly when you're going to have to finalize
Well, and I think they said groundbreaking would happen this year. Yeah. And that is the benefit of the design build, where we're able to, like he said, fast track some of those parts, and it doesn't we are not bidding out the entire project and waiting for that. We can do it a section at a time, so it'll get us moving a little faster than a traditional build system.
And I feel a lot better after this presentation. I think we're on the right track. I just think that there's a couple more things that need to be done, and I think that you gentlemen and our city staff walk away with the understanding that this is our priority and we're ready to go. And I keep saying that over and over and over, but it's kind of like there's no other way that you can take the extreme suggestion that we're ready to go,
Absolutely.
other than jumping up, turning over the table or something.
And again, I take full responsibility for the time frame. We do want to do it right. I want to give staff and the city of Coffeyville something they can be proud of, something that we can afford. All those are taken into mind. But I can tell you there was a collective sigh of relief when we saw these numbers tonight as compared to the last time that we met as a group, and we were staring at $240 a square foot. Danny and Rick are to be commended, and their teams. Aaron Hyde is a principal in this with Crossland. They've done a lot of work in the last week and a half, 2 weeks.
And we want to acknowledge that too. We appreciate you guys and Crossland Construction working with the city of Coffeyville. And I know you guys do a lot of projects, and this obviously is project is special to us, so we appreciate you jumping on board.
It's special to us, and we appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I don't have anything.
All right, we'll get started as quickly as possible. Guys, thank you so much.
We done? Shall we table this?
I figured you might have to.
Can't table it? Yeah, we can't table it.
Okay, moving along, thank you guys for sticking around for that. I enjoyed it. We can move on to the regular meeting. We are going to table the discussion on the CRC Board of Trustees till next time. So that leads us to the city manager's report and then comments from commissioners.
Commissioners, just very briefly. Obviously, we're a commissioner short for the board, so we are taking applications for that open seat until Thursday, August 3rd Thursday, August 11th at 5:00 p.m. Point of housekeeping, our August 9th commission meeting, the first meeting in August, has been postponed until and rescheduled for August 16th. Same time, same place.
Can I ask something? I don't mean to interrupt you.
Sure.
With the unexpected non-meeting that we had tonight and all of the regular stuff that we're going to have on the next agenda on the 16th, plus everything that we were supposed to do tonight, would it be advantageous for us to try to start the meeting at 6 instead of 6:30? Because from the sound of things, we're going to go a long way.
I'm just off the top of my head trying to think. We'll have a discussion, obviously, with the Board of Trustees. We anticipate having a decision and bring the candidates before you for the open commission seat on the 16th. We have the budget hearing that night. I don't know if that...
And then all your regular all your regular commission items, I mean, that's a lot of stuff for,
Start about 2:30 in the afternoon.
I mean, it,
I just come straight from work. I smell the hay while I'll be here, you know.
That's completely up to you. I mean, if you want.
I can start earlier. I'm usually here at 5:45 anyway, so, you know, whatever.
So we'd like to have it start at 6 o'clock on the 16th?
I would suggest that, and obviously, we can't make that decision at this moment, but we could suggest it, and you could,
We'll plan to make the announcement that the meeting on the 9th will be rescheduled for the 16th at 6 o'clock here at the Senior Citizens Activity Center. Quick update, street projects, 8th and Northeast, substantially complete. Obviously, it's open and just in time for Fair and Rodeo, just like the plan was designed. And I've been over it a few times, and it's pretty nice setup. So, 9th Street, obviously they had started laying asphalt, and we learned today that the asphalt plant broke down. So they have a delay in asphalting the streets. However, the sidewalk is still continuing, and to that note, they're going to have an early morning concrete pour tomorrow morning before sunup. So, and that's going to be from Reed Street to Gillum on 9th. So there is going to be construction activity early in the morning in that area. So if you're not already in bed and you live there, you may want to be so soon. The surface seal project has begun for this year, and I believe that there's a map of this year's streets on the city website now, and so you'll be able to access that and see where they will be. Also, they will be putting out notices at the houses, but I also believe we will be putting out information via Facebook posts as to the next day's locations where we anticipate their work to be taking place the next day. So kind of keep people up to date on that. Thursday, we have the Montgomery County Backs the Blue event. It's going to be at Walter Johnson Park starting at 7:30. The plan is for that to be in the Livestock Show Arena. We believe that'll be a good event. Encourage people to come out and support all our Montgomery County EMS, fire, all of them, police. And just a few upcoming events. July 30th is Christmas in July at the Aquatic Center from 6:30 to 10 o'clock. As hot as it's been, I want to think about Christmas already, so come out and enjoy that. August 2nd, we're going to have National Night Out. That also is going to be there at the Aquatic Center and in that area, 5:30 to 8:30. And then finally, one more event at the Aquatic Center is going to be August 4th, Throwback Thursday from 5 to 8 o'clock. With that, I would take questions if you have them.
National Night Out, that's a free event
Correct.
for the kids, swim, adults, whatever.
Yes.
Come out and swim, meet your local emergency people. The other thing, Fair and Rodeo, I don't know if you mentioned that.
I have not mentioned Fair and Rodeo. It begins August 6th.
And when's the parade? The parade's Wednesday.
If I remember from the invitation, is 10 a.m. Yeah. No, that's what. Oh. Maybe Cindy should answer that question.
And I did send you a message.
We'll confirm that because honestly, I've seen the message and I don't remember the
That's
the
the
time.
second week in August, correct? Yeah, we're good. I don't have any questions or comments. I think that I think Marcus did a wonderful job tonight. Thank you for doing that.
Before we get out of here, we do have a follow-up with Thomas's.
As Kendall mentioned, Donaldson Construction is doing the surface seal right now. We, in the transportation budget, had budgeted to do parking lots, start doing some of the parking lots. We got price quotes for the 10th Street parking lot. it's behind Lanning's
Okay.
downtown.
Yeah.
It's a big parking lot for especially Dalton Raid.
Right.
Just anything downtown uses that parking lot.
Right.
The price quote's coming in at $100,000 for that, to seal that parking lot. We're proposing to, especially with the way the meeting was tonight, go ahead and if we can get a consensus, we'll just add that and do a final quantity change order to the street surface seal project to go ahead and get that added on.
Question. First question that's in the budget.
It is, we set aside 80,000.
80,000.
And then the additional 20,000, Thomas, comes from?
It'd be essentially where we have some of the sidewalk, and there's other.
Sidewalk and curb and gutter funding.
Sidewalk and curb and gutter, yeah, was where we're looking at.
So we have the money to pay for it.
Yes.
My first concern is how bad is the parking lot, and that's a lot of money we could put for streets that are used every day, as opposed to.
Especially on the south end is getting really rather bad. You know, do
That
it now,
thing-
you'll save money versus reconstruction later. So.
That thing's a disaster.
And
It's in bad shape. And that was going to bring me to my second question. Was your question answered? Not really?
Well, if it's in bad shape, is putting overlay on top of it going to solve the problem underneath it, or are we just going to keep?
Well, we are planning to do some spot repair to fix the worst of it and then seal it up to keep it, to get it in good shape and keep it that way.
Just
So,
my
yeah.
first reaction is there's a lot of streets with holes, and, you know, just my first reaction. I'm not saying no, but I'm not saying yes either, so. But go ahead, Chris. I really just kind of was trying to figure that out.
One thing why we picked 10th Street, I mean, it's the downtown parking lot.
I understand.
You know, it's big, used a lot on multiple occasions, Boots and Barbecue, Dalton Defenders.
And this is
anything
part of the multi-year street improvement.
Yeah, 5-year transportation plan.
Right.
Yeah.
So this was already in the works.
Mhm. Yes.
The second thing is there are some huge holes in that parking lot. That's going to take some major. I mean, you just can't go out there and throw some gravel in it.
Right.
And I mean, you guys know that, but I'm saying this: we're going to do it, we need to do it right.
Yeah. We'll be going in there and fixing that before.
And the other thing is, I think that some of the guttering, or not the guttering, but the concrete, whatever they are, the curbs, the things that go in the
parking
yeah.
Oh, the median,
I mean,
parking stops.
there's chunks of it missing, and if we're going to do this, we need to do it. I mean, you need to get your concrete people out there and get that thing going and get it all done at once if you're going to do it. Otherwise, you might as well just take that out there and continue to do streets. Because if you're going to halfway do it, let's not even bother.
I think the idea of the surface seal now is to stop the deterioration as much as possible. We'll do some repairs ahead of time. And then if we can budget money, we'll follow up with repairs. Right now, we don't really have a budget for repairing those islands.
Well, the thing is that, and I'm not suggesting that we go out there and pour all new islands, but what I'm suggesting is you've got places out there that are 4 or 5, inches in length that are just crumbled up. It doesn't take a whole lot to go out there with a trowel, and I mean, I'm not a construction guy, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do, and I'm not saying we can't do those repairs. I think what I'm saying is we may not be able to get them done before Donaldson is ready to do the surface.
And I think we could do those repairs after Donaldson's here right now.
Right, and he's gonna do the.
Get the street sealed, we can go back and start working on the repairs of those islands. It's not gonna affect the surface.
I completely concur with that.
And I think as far as we could do streets with this money, we looked at it when we were doing the 5-year plan and said, we have all these parking lots that are deteriorating. They're our responsibility too. If we stop the deterioration, we'll also stop a future total rebuild of those parking lots. I mean, that's why we put it in the 5-year plan. We kept the money for streets. We added money for parking lots.
We actually, this year, we increased our budget for street surface seal as well as added the 80,000 for parking lots.
And when we do this parking lot, we're gonna go out and redo the parking
restriped,
stalls
yeah.
and,
Restriped, yes.
and all that other stuff. And then we'll continue to work on the hacks in the islands and whatnot. Obviously, it won't be done before they're ready to do the seal project.
Right, and I think that's the reason we're asking kind of for a consensus tonight, to go ahead and have them while they're in town, so we don't pay a remobilization to bring them back. And then we can just bring it as a change order.
So probably by the end of the year, we ought to have a really nice parking lot over there once all those things are fixed.
You know, it won't fix every little divot and.
But if you go
but we
out there
can
and
come back.
pre-treat it, right, if
Yeah.
you go out there and pre-treat it, it should take care of most of them.
Yeah, it should handle a lot. And, yeah, there's some spots we're gonna have to dig out and repair before they do it.
So that's good. I'm fine with it. How are you?
All right.
That's good.
And really, the only reason we're asking now is because by the time we officially meet again, Donaldson's going to be
Yeah, they're-
on their way out of town.
I could see them finishing up with just the streets probably next week pretty easily, depending on the weather. So, I mean, yeah, just like the brief rain shower, that kind of will hold them up, but.
And that was going to bring me to another question, but the 9th Street project, is the striping in that 9th Street project, is it included in the contract, or are we going to do it ourselves?
You're talking the center striping of
Yeah.
the lanes?
There's not striping in the project. We don't usually stripe residential streets.
Do we go down 5th Street and tell me you don't?
Well,
You don't-
Fifth and
Yeah.
Fourth are the exceptions because we've striped them to indicate the side to park on.
Okay. So we're not going to
As they're
have to,
one-way streets.
we're not going to have to concern ourselves with the striping.
No, and you know,
Don't drive and follow the stripe.
Yeah.
to speak to that a little bit, some of that was just poor equipment that we've made some repairs to the equipment that we have to better guide the drivers to be able to keep it straight.
The way the equipment was set up, the paint was out on an arm out here, and if you would hit a bump, you go like this, the paint goes like this. So now they've got it more centered on where the driver's driving, and it should work much better.
Sounds great.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Oh,
There is
good.
no
See you
meeting.
guys later. I'd have left 30 minutes ago.
Marcus, you